President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the sale of all federal government's recovered assets within the next 6 months in order to generate revenue for the country. The Attorney General of the Federation and Minister of Justice, Abubakar Malami, disclosed this while inaugurating a 22-man interministerial committee in Abuja. The AGF urged the committee to deploy the Assets Tracing, Recovery and Management Regulations 2019, the standard operating procedures and terms of reference, as its working tools and guide on how best to actualize the quick disposal of the recovered assets in line with the directive of the President. All right, joining me now for this discussion is lawyer and social development advocate, Jide Ologun. Jide, good morning. It's good to see you.
Good morning, Mike.
Great. Right now, a lot of people have reacted to this order by the President. A lot of people said it's a good right step in the right direction, because if assets have been recovered, why not dispose them and see how way forward is? But generally, what do you make of this right now?
To start with, there is need to drive the revenue base of the country. And of course, if there are assets that have been forfeited to the federal government and they are to be sold, it should bring in the revenue, except that for the likes of us, that may appear like palliative revenue drive. But having said that, we are dealing with corruption here. Assets that have been forfeited, illegally acquired, and that comes under Section 15, Subsection 5 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended. So the government has a mandate to abolish corruption and abuse of office. And you know that towards this, in 2019, we had the Asset Tracing, Recovery and Management Regulation that was signed by the Attorney General, and that is what partly led to the fracas between the acting chairman of EFCC and the Attorney General. It was on the allegation that recovered assets were being sold and things like that, no accountability. And you can see how the former acting chairman of EFCC was eased out of the way. And now the Attorney General is taking full responsibility with some interministerial agencies. And if you look at the position of the Attorney General, he's appointed by Section 150 of the Nigerian Constitution as the #1 law officer in the nation. And the concern of Nigerians is that, let's even assume the revenue comes in. What do we do with the revenue? Because we have recovered so much from the Abacha loot. In fact, the last one that came in was to be towards maybe the completion of Lagos-Ibadan Expressway and some other projects, and yet we are still talking about infrastructure deficit in the country. And in wealth management, you classify your evaluation into assets and liability. And assets constitute the gains you have, and liability are the things that flow out of you. So is our assets base as a nation strong? And my answer is no. If we are projecting by year 2021 that our total indebtedness will be in the region of about 38 trillion naira. You see, so we need to look inwards and ensure that even when we bring up these revenues, we deploy them into reactivating the economy to have substantial revenue drive. For example, if we can fix electricity in this country, if we can fix security in this country, that will help us attract foreign direct investments. That will enable local investors to rise up and create wealth.
Right. Now, one of the areas of concern, or area that the minister was telling the committee to work on, was the issue of transparency and information flow. And basically, from the comments we have also heard from people, they are very concerned with the transparency of the sale of these assets and all of that. How do we really ensure that, especially when it comes to the information flow, for Nigerians to really know that the assets so forfeited was sold, and these were the persons who bought them, and it was not the same people who forfeited it, came back somehow to buy them over?
Currently, the government has a very huge trust gap issue. The transparency you spoke about, accountability, these are critical elements in governance. And like I just mentioned, what even led to this, the battle between the Attorney General and the former acting chairman of EFCC, was absence of accountability and transparency. While the Attorney General wrote a petition to the President alleging that the former chairman was doing some underdealings in selling the assets recovered, the chairman, former chairman, acting chairman himself was also making allegations. And here we are now, even though he was eased out of office, there hasn't been any prosecution. And that is the concern we have. And when you talk about transparency and accountability, it must run through the process of prosecution. Look at what just happened in the UAE. Some alleged financiers of Boko Haram, convicted, you see, by the nation. You saw what happened to Hush Puppy. So here we are recovering assets, but not convicting those who probably, dealt treacherously with us.
And Nigeria has not been able to convict anyone who is assumed to have...
The EFCC will not agree with you on that. They will roll out facts
the point
and figures that they have convicted, but you may be talking about the caliber of those who
we're talking of those who are claimed to have or alleged to have sponsored Boko Haram. That's what I'm talking about.
No. In fact, in the case of the former deputy governor of CBN, Malaife, who claimed that he was reliably informed that the Boko Haram is being sponsored by some in the elite group. You saw how the DSS, a state agency, drilled the man, and that is the comparison I just drew now. Even the UAE, that is not the direct victim of Islamic State of West Africa province campaign in Nigeria, they are convicting those who are sponsoring. But what do we have? We begin to read that we are likely to budget about 2 billion for prosecution of Boko Haram. We have heard so much. The suspicion is that this money hardly gets to where they can impact the people. And under this new committee set up by the Attorney General of the Federation, he is saying that the activities of the committee should be in the interest of Nigerians, in the interest of justice. And the reflection of justice we can have in this country now is to have prosperity. But from all indications, we are fast drifting away from prosperity. Like I said, what percentage of our revenue goes into debt management? So what efforts are we making to engage the oil and gas, the gold in Zamfara State? What are we doing to ensure that we remove the management of some of these mineral resources from the exclusive legislative list? And let states engage them. Let's create wealth within the country. And I think that should be the focus, so that we don't start reading again that these recovered assets, when they are sold, the money is spent on irrelevant things that will not add concrete value to the economy of the nation.
Government always has its blueprint on the usage of
funds. It's not about blueprints, it's about implementation prints. We need to implement positively so, and the world is willing to partner with us, really.
Now, 6 months, I wonder what you make of the ability to sell all these forfeited items and all of that, assets within 6 months.
Talking about ability, I may let you know that probably even before coming out to declare that these assets be sold, quite a number of them could have gone through bidding. This is Nigeria, and this is an area where I have a level of experience. So even before it comes out to the public, you can be sure that a huge chunk of it is likely to have been assigned, you see, and that is the issue. Before now, vessels have been sold. There was a time about 774 tankers and trucks were sold, and and it was the conflict of interest between those two offices that probably led to Magu being eased out of the way. But what we are saying is that whatever we do should be in the best interest of the nation. And our vision now, if it was never part of it, is to create prosperity in Nigeria. And the resources for doing that are within Nigeria.
All right. When you talk about whatever we do should be in the best interest of the nation, how do we define what the best interest of the nation is? Because the point there is whatever government is doing whatever he's doing in the best interest of the nation as far as they are concerned.
The best interest of the nation that I'm making reference to, can we have electricity in this country? Is it an impossible thing? It's not an impossible thing. What are we investing into it? Are we deliberate about it? Can we revive education and attend to the needs of the youth? If you don't develop human capital, you are toying with poverty. We've made reference to South Korea. I was listening to an analysis, and somebody was comparing that in the 60s, we were classmates with likes of South Korea. I know that Malaysia, Singapore in 1965, moved out of Malaysia, out of frustration, at a poverty level. But today, Singapore is one of the best countries to live and to work in the world. We have the examples of Switzerland was a poor country. You talk of Norway, you talk of Sweden. You see, so what exactly is wrong with us? And that is why some of us are amazed that, you know, if you go into content analysis, I think as at March 2015, let's use the last 6 or 5 years, the total indebtedness of Nigeria was about 12.12 trillion naira. Today, it's in the threshold of about 30-something trillion naira. So what can we claim on ground? We appreciate the government efforts and everything, but basically, some uncompleted projects. Somebody was saying now, there's a road being constructed around Port Harcourt that has been going on for 14 years. Can we be deliberate in creating wealth in this country? All right. When Adam Smith was writing about the wealth of nations, his focus was on wealth, not on poverty. But I'm afraid now that our attention is engulfed by poverty. Poverty should be in the background. And we need to do everything to bring prosperity on the table, knowing the consequences of poverty. We just came out of the anti-NSAS protest, which was a violent part. And we saw how violent some hoodlums in quotes can be. And if we dig deep really sincerely, who has produced these hoodlums in quotes? But that is not the discussion for today. And like Sheikh Zayed said, that wealth is not money, but developing people. So, and in developing people, you need to create opportunities for that development. Education is important, healthcare is important, employment opportunities. As of today, the unemployment rate in the U.S. moved from about 8.4 to about 7.9%. In the UK, it's about 4.5%. In Nigeria, it's about 27.5%. You see, and that tells us about 17.5 million Nigerians are within that bracket. We are not talking of those who are out of school. So we have issues that we must deal with.
All right. Now, of course, there are issues to deal with. How the government is going about dealing with them is totally a different thing. Now, you mentioned the Abacha loot earlier on. We hear the government did the cash transfer of distributing part of the tranche of Abacha loot, the one before the one that was used for part of Lagos, Ibadan, and the others, to the poorest of the poor. It was distributed that way. As it is right now, if you have to measure the impact of that kind of distribution, I wonder what you say that is right now. How well off are the people
I commend the government effort, really, but you
money.
see, we can do better. There is what we call economic environment in public relations. Now, the money was distributed to the poor, the poorest of the poor. I cannot claim that I have facts to that effect, but we read about it. But let me let you know that practically a bag of rice local is 28,000 today. Foreign rice is 32,000 naira. Minimum living wage is 30,000 naira. Minimum wage at living. So you see the economic environment making a rubbish of these palliative measures. Now you are aware that the electricity tariff has been increased and is being implemented. All right, so there are issues. People are struggling. Businesses are struggling. You are aware also that dollar is about 470 naira to $1. So what is the effect of that in the business community? All right, so we need to work on the environment. You need to create enabling environment. So whatever palliative measures you roll out in a disabling environment will be consumed by that environment. And that is why the government efforts now should be on how can we create a productive business environment in Nigeria. Like I said, when you even talk about production, the transportation of the products, they are critical. All right, how much is the pump price of petroleum now? I mean, Mr. Mike, I'm a researcher, so I go to the market. Go out there and ask to buy onions. You'll be amazed. So we have issues that should bother us. And again, many have been advising on the cost of government. You still have the very huge, unreasonable gap between the extremely poor and the extremely wealthy. So how do we redistribute this wealth? How do we create a sustainable economy within the mandate of Section 16 of the Nigerian Constitution 1999 as amended? You see, those are the issues that should concern us.
All right, this how do we change, or how do we create, how do we set this agenda, how do we implement? Is it the absence of will, or it is the absence of the know-how on how to do it? Because the point there is, we've been talking about this for years, but we're still here. Nothing is changing. The number of those who are poor from the records are still going up. The number of those who are unemployed from the records are still going up. People who are in the rural villages or rural dwelling areas suffering whatever they're suffering, the numbers are still going up. Mortality rate from all the records are still. So how do we implement all of this?
Brilliant questions there. It's not the absence of know-how. My president was addressing the nation recently, and he admitted that Nigerians excel abroad. So over there, it's brain gain, and I can testify to that. Nigerians drive the governance processes excellently in other countries where the environment is provided. It is the environment and the absence of economic will. And let me advise, it is wiser to reach out to the people through performance that we upscale your political relevance. If Lee Kuan Yew resurrects now, he does not need to contest for office. Singaporean will go to him.
Exactly.
Sir, the president is willing to step down for you. Come and manage it. If Nelson Mandela resurrects now and comes back as a 45-year-old young man, South Africans will rush to his house. That's, sir, come and do this. You saw what Joseph did in Egypt. A huge famine was coming. And King Pharaoh ordained him in Genesis chapter 41, if you read from 39 to 41. And this man transformed what was coming. He created prosperity. And we call it resourceful leadership. You may have overflowing resources. If you are not resourceful in managing the resources, you will end in poverty.
All right.
And I think that is the challenge of my country. You see, today the report is that our 4 refineries are probably beyond repairs. I mean, Mr. Mike, it's amazing. And if you go into content analysis and calculate how much in billions we have spent in the turnaround maintenance, you are likely to ask a very simple question: does this fall under wise governance or foolish governance? You see, and some of us are also saying, until we deal with the gross insecurity in the country, we may not be prepared for prosperity, because there are 2 levels of wealth creation in a nation: the wealth you create locally and the wealth you attract. And security is critical to both.
All right. And the will is in the mix of all of it as well. Thank you so much, Jide Ologun, for all the analysis. We really appreciate you.
God bless Nigeria.
Thank you very much. Right.
Thank you too.